Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a look at a concept that might totally flip how you think about service, or, ministry. When we hear that word, most of us picture a pulpit, right? Maybe a church choir or a big community outreach program. But based on a really fascinating deep dive into Ephesians 6, 1-4, we might need to completely rethink this. What if we stop looking at ministry strictly as a public Sunday morning activity and start seeing it as a daily, home-based practice? It's a huge shift, a radical recentering of where our most important work actually goes down.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I'm going to throw a number at you, and it's a number that immediately shatters that picture-perfect, idyllic image we often have of the family home. 5,950. It's a heavy, honestly staggering number. And once you understand what it actually represents, it's going to completely change how you view the modern household.
That 5,950 represents the recorded cases of violence against women just since January 1st, 2025, according to the Indonesian House of Representatives Commission 8. It brings up a really devastating paradox. The home is universally supposed to be the absolute safest place for a person to be, right? But statistically, it frequently just isn't. Tragically, it is often the site of profound harm.
Which brings us to part one, the bitter reality of the family room. There is a massive, sharp contrast between this dark modern reality and the biblical ideal of what a home is actually meant to be. It's supposed to be a secure sanctuary for growth, for expression, and for mutual service, definitely not a place of harm.
So, how do we begin to fix this? Let's move into part two, redefining ministry. It requires bridging that massive gap by moving the spotlight away from institutional religion and pointing it directly at our most intimate, day-to-day relationships. The family is actually the very first ministry room a person ever steps into. It really comes down to this core idea. Ministry doesn't start with church programs. It begins with the relationships built right there within the family. Think about it. True ministry isn't just about what someone does on a Sunday morning in front of a big congregation. It is profoundly defined by how you treat your spouse, your kids, or your parents on a random Tuesday evening at the dinner table. It's about putting love and mutual respect at the absolute center of those domestic relationships.
Now, let's shift gears to part three, the sacred calling of a child. Because, well, no matter how old you are right now watching this explainer, you are, or at least you once were, a child. That means these principles apply universally to every single one of us. It frames a child's role not just as a simple biological reality, but as a genuine sacred calling.
Let's ground these lofty theological concepts in everyday reality for a second. Do you remember when your parents asked you to go to the store or help with the dishes or just do basic chores around the house? Think back to those moments. Most of us probably did these things, maybe sometimes with a little bit of grumbling, but fundamentally we did them out of an understanding that it helped the family run smoothly.
But here's where it gets super interesting. The source material points out that when a child willingly helps out, when they do it out of love and respect, rather than just a forced obligation or fear of punishment, it's actually a deeply spiritual act. This willing obedience is seen as a direct, tangible reflection of a child's obedience to God. It literally elevates mundane things like household chores into a genuine form of divine service.
Now, what's really interesting here is the original Greek word used for the biblical command to honor your father and mother. The word is tamah. And it doesn't just mean politely doing exactly what you're told. Tamah means assigning true value, dignity, and deep appreciation to someone. So spiritual service involves treating parents not just with basic manners, but with a really profound, dignified respect.
And when you analyze this through a feminist perspective, as our source material does, you see that this biblical command radically rejected the prevailing Roman patriarchal culture of its time. Back then, the father figure held absolute, unchecked power, right? He was the sole recipient of ultimate honor. But this biblical perspective places the mother right alongside the father. Both possess equal dignity in the eyes of God and demand equal honor from their children, which entirely subverted the traditional patriarchy of that era.
All right, let's flip the script and look at the other side of the equation in part four, parenting without violence. Because if a child's role is to honor, a parent's role is entirely about how they wield their authority. And the text makes it unequivocally clear that true parental authority has absolutely zero room for violence.
This means zero room for toxic dominance in the home. A family focused on true service actively rejects authoritarian control, physical violence, verbal abuse, and emotional manipulation. The text also specifically calls out something known as spiritual intimidation, which is the toxic manipulation of using God's name or religious authority to frighten, pressure, or control children just to meet a parent's selfish desires.
And this brilliantly illustrates what parents are actually called to do instead of dominating. They are called to bring them up.
The Greek root used here is ektriphothate, which describes a patient, active process of nourishing, caring for, and guiding someone until they reach full, healthy maturity. So parental authority isn't a tool for domination at all, it's an act of servant-hearted nourishment.
So what does this actually look like in practice day to day? Well, the source provides some incredibly practical steps. It means praying together during the mundane transitions of the day, like right before bed or before heading out to school. It requires maintaining an open, safe dialogue where kids can bring up their struggles without the fear of some harsh judgment. It includes gently guiding them through really complex modern issues regarding their identity. And above all, it means doing this with grace, strictly avoiding that spiritual manipulation we talked about just a minute ago.
Zooming out to a macro perspective, we reach Part 5, Servant Leadership. Because these healthy, nonviolent, mutually respectful family dynamics, they aren't just good for the individuals inside the house, they are the absolute foundation required for a strong church and a healthy, broader society. You simply cannot build a healthy, thriving community out of broken, dominating households. Ultimately, a healthy family model is naturally inclusive and non-hierarchical. Ministry isn't just monopolized by one dominant figure sitting at the head of the table. Instead, every single member is a servant who shares the responsibilities of love, forgiveness, and care equally. It's a total team effort.
Which leaves us with one really profound question to think about. Is your home a place of inclusive servant leadership, where everyone is nourished and equally valued? Or, if you look closely, is it a space of subtle dominance? It's a powerful framework that asks all of us to redefine where our most important work is truly being done. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.